going to set her up with Slack anyway. But a word, first of all, thank you to the OWASP LA board. A round of applause for this team for putting together a world-class chapter of a world-class organization. This is the gold standard. You guys are the gold standard. Last time I was here, so there's a reason why I don't look like that picture that Mariam flashed up of mine. It's because that's from my last speaking gig at OWASP LA, which was October of 2017, right after Equifax breach happened. And I never changed my LinkedIn picture since, so they just grabbed that. The other sign that I've been in this industry for too long is two of my bosses were mentioned in her presentation too. So I work for Jeff Williams. How many of you were here last month for the contrast security presentation? There you go. So I used to work for Jeff. Jeff, if you weren't here, Jeff is 6'10", patent, one of the founders of OWASP, person who invented the OWASP Top 10 project, and he was a patent lawyer from Georgetown, so you could never win an argument with him. And you saw the slide for OWASP Top 10 for LLMs. Steve Wilson was the chief product officer of the company during one of its during its scale era. I worked for him as well. So very, very small world that is application security. A couple of comments before I get started. I'm not going to mention anything about Kodem today. This is particularly a piece of research that our researchers are working on related to AI code editors. Some of these things I can tell you we've disclosed to the original vendor. They've accepted the vulnerability, so I can talk about it, and that's on paper. I will also mention a couple of things that have been accepted by those vendors, by Anthropic, Gemini, and OpenAI specifically, but I cannot put it on slides. You will see it coming later on from our research blog and possibly Black Hat or academic conferences down the road. Right. Before we jump in, I've been flashing this up. Something we're doing for the AppSec community. Again, nothing to do with product. We don't take your information. We're just doing this because I want a way for the company to stay engaged with the community. That has nothing to do with selling our product. There is no good compensation survey for our market. So you're left, if you're looking for an application security job, you're left with an HR person running a report on ADP and looking at bad data and giving you a bad deal. We want to change that. And we're trying to do a product security compensation survey. So if you work in application security, product security, cloud security, or any related title, please fill out the survey for the benefit of your peers. And for the next time you look for a job, the next time you hire someone. The output out of this will be a report and a benchmarking tool. So the next time you get an offer or you are trying to give somebody an offer, you can go to the benchmarking tool and you can baseline. And depending on how many respondents we get, we'll allow you to slice and dice based on geo, based on seniority, and years of experience and so on, and technical skills and so on. Right? That's it. Let's jump right in. Oh, before I get started, is there anyone who hasn't gotten an owl timer yet? All right, please come by and grab one when the presentation is done or while I'm talking. You're more than welcome to. Thank you. And keeping with the nature theme, this is a bit of a joke. So our management meeting every Monday morning, 5 a.m. Pacific time, because half our management team's in Tel Aviv. This represents our management team, and we have a new version of this image. But what we tell us is we're a startup, and we're trying to cross the chasm. Has anyone read Jeffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm? Yep. So this is our CEO holding us accountable, saying we're all on this side till we get to $1 billion valuation. Right? He's going to continue reminding us we're on this side of the ocean, this side of the river, until we get there, and it's on all of us to get there. But the goal of the presentation is, I'll tell you the story behind it. How many of you use AI code editors? So Cursor, Claude Code, Gemini, CLI. 1, 2. How many have heard about these AI code editors? How many have never heard of these AI code editors? All right, good. So I just want to make sure I baseline what we discussed. So I'll go into some fundamentals of how the AI code editors work, how they're different from Eclipse or VS Code or the others. They all have plugins for your code editors that you're writing code in today. Two of our customers the same week came to us and said, help. What happened? Our CTO wants all our engineers to move to Cursor in 1 month. I have no idea what that means for us as the product security team. So the directive after that was as abstract as that. We took two of our researchers and said, join the bug bounty program for Cursor, join the bug bounty program for Anthropic. The Claude Code was just coming out, like they just released it. Gemini CLI was still in the works, and find what you can find, right? And this is our first set of findings from there. So this has been going on for a while. So imagine, like, think about when Claude Code came out, when Cursor just started hitting like scale. This is what we can talk about publicly. I am not one of those researchers. I am sharing with you what our researchers found and what we're allowed to talk about. Okay? Any questions so far? I'm going to fly through this. Most of you know why these tools matter. Everyone's using it. Like I said, more than a third of our customers are on Cursor, Gemini CLI, or Claude Code, or OpenAI Codex now. That's picking up steam, even though they were the last to market. People are using it. That's why we're talking about it. That's why we're researching it. And it's useful. It's useful in two ways. Specifically, if you like double click, for those of you, you can confirm or validate this. It's good for like task completion things, for scaffolding things. It also gives you a sense of accomplishment, is what I'm hearing. Like when you talk to people, it makes you feel more productive. Are you actually more productive? The data is still out there. There are people who say, like, if you start leaning too heavily on it, you're spending more time debugging something that it produced rather than actually writing the code yourself. But if there's like basic things, if you're scripting something basic, if you're migrating a function that reverses a linked list from one language to the next, you don't have to do it yourself again. So there's like a sense of perceived productivity, and that makes it sticky, right? There's a perception in this market. You hear OpenAI's head of Codex, the person who runs the Codex team, their AI code editor, talks about this. They're like, any of these tools you put out there generally gets ignored until it meets this threshold of usefulness. You don't know when it's going to hit, but when it hits, then developers don't want to get rid of it. Then they start like they start yelling at you for getting rid of it. So all these have hit those thresholds of usefulness at some point. And now they're going into the next thing, which is like code reviews. And now both Codex and Claude Code can do, like, basically tell you what your manager can tell you when you submit a PR, or your peer when you do a peer review, what a peer developer can tell you. So this stuff matters. So we're looking at it. How does it actually work? I think for those of you who've actually like seen it or used it, this is generally how it works. You have either an IDE or a command line, like a terminal. You'll see it in a minute. You can give it a natural language prompt, the same way you give it a Unix command, or the same way you can write code, like if you're in the IDE. Depending on what the prompt is, it gives you a code suggestion. But in addition to that, it can also compile, it can run, it can create directories, it can create files for you, it can change the permissions, it can create a config file, do all that stuff, and it can execute the program for you. And if there are issues, it will tell you what the issues are, right? That's generally the functionality. That includes, for those of you, this is an AppSec group, so that includes pulling in the right dependencies. It doesn't mean it's writing the code from scratch, right? It's not going to write a transformer from scratch. It's going to import PyTorch, and it's going to call the right function, right? And so start thinking about what the security issues are with that. So what are some of the controls that are in place? So it checks with the user if you're running specific Unix commands. In the beginning, it can get very annoying, but it asks you for approval before running certain commands. Like the first time I launched Claude Code, even if I did ls, it would ask me if it's okay to run ls. But it generally errs on the side of caution and asks you for approval. And you can do one of three things. You can say it, yes, run it this time. 2, run it always. Or 3, run something else instead. If somebody tries to run this function, run something else instead. Right? However, if you just Reddit this, auto approval is very easy to do. So option number 2 is always approve it. So you could auto approve sudo. You could auto approve chmod. You could auto approve kill processes. You can auto approve it. It will not stop you. Second is there are allow lists. So there's a config file called claude.md for Claude Code. I'm sure OpenAI and Gemini CLI have their own. You can create a whitelist of commands that can be run, commands that need additional approval, and commands that should never be run. And what's cool about it is you don't have to know there is no specific syntax. You can write it as a free-form text file, and you will understand it like a prompt, right? This is a scary part. Cursor actually has this. It's called YOLO mode. Means no approval checks. Like I'm getting annoyed with this one with my IDE or my terminal asking me for permission every time. I'm just going to auto approve everything, and I'm going to run everything. And this is as easy as a checkbox in Cursor. With Claude Code, you can do it. It's actually in their docs. But it's a little bit more friction to make that happen. But it exists, right? And there's some checks when you pull in dependencies, not always. Like I try to, everyone familiar with like what's going on with NPM right now? So NPM, the node package manager, just one of the maintainers got phished, and the attacker stole the maintainer's account and installed a malicious worm on some popular packages that go up to like 2 billion downloads a week, sorry. And the worm is self-replicating. So it went from like 18 repositories to 187 to unconfirmed now. It's gone, like I've heard it's gone above 300. I was trying to trick it into pulling like one of those, it didn't. So Claude Code like specifically said, yeah, this one has a security issue. I'm not going to pull it in, but here's an alternate package, a later version of it that will. I was specifically trying this thing called Tiny Color, which does like color rendering for your UI for a front end. So those are some of the checks. So that's baseline. Like this is how the AI code editors work. A prompt, you can give it a prompt, it'll produce some code, it'll actually run the code, it'll run Unix commands, and there's some checks and balances. It'll ask you for approval before running a Unix function, but it's very easy to bypass it, and you'll see that. And it'll also pull in dependencies that could be dangerous, could not be dangerous. What it does not do, I haven't proved this yet, our researchers are doing this, is if the vulnerable dependency, let's say one of those NPM packages that got owned, is a transitive dependency. That means it's in a library. It's not the library that you pull in. Let's say you pull in PyTorch to create an AI, to create a transformer-based application. PyTorch is not vulnerable, but what if PyTorch imported one of their libraries in their code? I don't know if it picks that up yet. Now, Anthropic's security team is probably the best security team in the world. So it's only a matter of time before they pick that up. And I know dependency management, I've talked to Jason Clinton, their CISO. It is top of dependency management is top of mind for them. So I'm sure they'll pick it up, but know that that's a risk. So What I wanted to share with you with this site is what does it do, and what's the, like, as a security-minded engineering community, what do you need to keep in mind when you're using some of this tooling? Please don't use YOLO mode. Any questions before I move on to our findings? Okay. So our researcher, since he started, there are three classes of findings. One was bypassing user approval. And you saw how easy that was, right? But even if I say, no, do something differently, or ask for my approval every time, there's a way to bypass it. There's a way to get an approved function to run arbitrary code, and I'll show you that. Second, there's a way to DOS it. Thank God they fixed this. This was a very silly input validation, OWASP top 10 101 thing, where they had a, for the Java programmers, if you have a try for an exception, you have to have a catch. They didn't have a catch for a particular exception. So if it saw like an input that was not valid, it would just crash your current session of Claude. Anthropic's response to that was, well, just start another session. Like, we're not going to claim that as a bug, just start another session. But within a couple of weeks, they went and fixed it. And we tried to replicate the bug in the new version. They couldn't. They kept resolving. Every time we try to put the same payload in, it would specifically sanitize it and give you the correct version. Like if you added a trailing space, but there's no trailing space, it removed the trailing space. Interesting, right? And we could not, it does not let you run an old version of Claude Code. So luckily, a researcher recorded a video of himself DOSing Claude Code, so I'll show you that. So that one I cannot replicate for you, but I'll show you the video of it being replicated. And there's some funny stuff he did with it after. You'll see. Third is remote code execution. So this one, we've submitted the vulnerabilities. It's not just Anthropic, it's to Gemini and to OpenAI as well. They have accepted it. We can talk about it after there's a cool-off period. After that, we can talk about it. So maybe next time, or come to Black Hat Asia Pac, or come to our workshops we'll do next year. Well, we can talk about it. You'll probably see it in our blog after. Any questions on the two classes of vulnerabilities before we go into it? So those are the two screenshots of the one is from bypassing the user approval. I'll show you how that works. And then that's actually us DOSing Claude Code. Okay. So the approval bypass. So what is auto approval? I think this is pretty clear. There's a way to, if you have, you can maintain a whitelist of commands that you can approve to use by using Claude Code. It's designed to make the things that you normally use, commonly use, and are safe, less intrusive, and it works by maintaining a list of pre-approved binaries. Like I said, you can tell the prompt through a prompt. You can tell the agent to do it, or you can maintain a file in claude.md specifically to do it. Let's see how this works. I'm going to switch to my terminal for a second, and I apologize for turning my back on the Zoom audience. One second. All right. Can you guys see my screen? All right. So let's say I do something like chmod rwx. Yeah, let me do that one. Also working on. This is the one thing I don't like about it. When you're used to using bash or like a terminal command, like you cannot do autocomplete. like you can do this, like it'll list the things, but there's so many times when I'm running Unix, and I'm like, I just feel like quitting Claude Code and just running it on my terminal, like doing stuff on my terminal. See what it does. It says funny stuff like sketching. Sometimes it does it says hyperventilating, and then there it asks you, do you want to proceed? Do you want me to add that to my allow list, or do you want me to tell Claude to do something different? I'm going to keep that as, and it's a little slow. Like when you're used to, if you're primarily using this for command line stuff, it's a little frustrating about how like um, slow it is. Oh, sorry, how slow it is. Thank you, Marty. But that's generally like how the approval works. Now, what the interesting thing is, I created this test like shell script called payload.sh. Okay, it's not auto approved. It's supposed to ask me for approval every time I run it. Let's see what it does. It's asking me for approval, right? I can also, if I can say no, never run it, but then it'll ask me for an action to either delete it or move it to another directory so no one tries to run it. I don't want to do that for the purposes of this demo. You'll see why. But let's say I want to proceed. Yeah. So what this means is it's not always approved. It's only approved for this time. And all it does is blah. It's spitting out my username. It's spitting out a timestamp. Okay. Now, if I use the find command, anyone familiar with the find command? It's a directory traversal command in Unix. Find command has an exec argument, which lets you execute shell commands or code. Right now, I haven't even put exec in here. Check out what happens. It added exec, and it ran it without my approval. There you go. And it's still running. Thank you, Claude. Thank you for running arbitrary code without my approval. Right, there you go. They haven't fixed it. Right, they fixed the very specific, like if you go read our blog post on this, that's if you try running that command copy paste, it will not run. But because that one had our researcher running Python 3, and then he did the same thing. Instead of creating his own script, he just ran the Python command on and created a Python file and did it that way. So if you try to run it on Python, it doesn't do it. But anything else, if you create a malicious file and you say don't ask for my approval, make sure you ask for my approval, or don't run this, it will still run this by doing this. And think about any other command where there is a version of exec and where you can embed arbitrary code. It's not validated. Now this is right now, like I said, this is the best security team in the world. Some of the most brightest minds in our industry. They take application security very seriously. They will fix it because now they know about it. They've acknowledged it. They will fix it. But this is more for you. This is not like a gotcha moment. This is security-minded developers. This is what you need to know when you're using this tooling. Or if you are working for a CTO whose engineers are all using this, know what you're up against. Right? Any questions? Yes, sir. Looks like this is going to be That's a good question. That was actually Anthropic's. That's why Anthropic didn't log this one as a CVE. They're like, so what? It's one developer. Our perspective is yes, absolutely. But imagine you are managing, you are the SRE or the AI engineering team that's serving Claude Code to a team of 500 developers. You manage the allow list, and somewhere someone gets fished, goes in, or somewhere something breaks in one of those engineers, and this happens. You have a malicious developer doing this. What's the risk of that? The deeper issue behind it is what's the input validation they're doing in Claude Code, right? So that part of us joining the bug bounty team is keeping them on their toes on making sure you're not going to catch like the pace at which they're writing this, the quality at which they're writing this, the way they're scaling the number of users they have on this. They're not going to be able to catch everything. So that as good citizens of the community, our job is to make sure we catch the things they don't catch and let them know so they can fix it. But the main risk right now, if this doesn't get fixed, is that if you're managing this allow list for 500 to 1,000 developers, that's an issue. That's an attack surface that you didn't have before. Any other, sir?
The binaries or anything to keep track of what they are, or is it just the name of the binary?
Ooh, I don't know. I'm sure they hash it.
The binary. But that is, you know.
Ooh, I don't know. Let me get, I'm sure they hash it, but I don't know the answer to that question.
Send that command to something for a cross-prompt attack into this and do a privilege escalation with no click.
I haven't tried it. I don't know the exact payload to do for it, but we're gonna go back and try that. Try it and let me know. I don't want to try it on my machine. Yes, sir.
Those now instructed to be allowed.
Sorry, say that again.
So everything the script to execute.
Yeah.
Is now in the context.
Yes, it is.
So now it's instructed to the LLM.
Yes.
So you have a self-propagating robot. Right?
You're absolutely right. It could happen. It could be the case. I don't know how long the context window is. It's at least this session. It's actually more than this session. So it's I don't know how many sessions, but you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. That's a good point. Hopefully we don't have the next NPM worm. It's saying because everything I've run here is part of the context window for Claude. So it could be used, it could be weaponized into a self-propagating worm. If you're using this, if someone hijacked the session like they did for the NPM maintainer. This is great. Any other questions on this one? Cool. I'm gonna switch back. So I think you guys understand this. This is why the bypass worked. It's general, like there's a very good, the head of OpenAI Codex did a podcast on September 15th. It's part of their official podcast series. Go listen to how they think about this. And he talks about like, they think very, very deeply about the trade-offs. Both OpenAI Codex and Cursor as a company at one point considered building their own SAST tool. Right? Cursor was supposed to be a code review tool, code review for vulnerabilities tool. Right? And they talk about the trade-off between security and adoption, and this is like a deliberate choice they make sometimes because they catch the stuff, and the way they're trying to offset it is you'll see Codex just released this thing called code reviews, which will look at your PR and give you feedback on your PR that's gotten more useful than what your PR can give you. They're like their own engineers are like, man, this PR made me think. I should go back and like redo what I just did. Right? It's not just noise for them anymore. It's not just an, oh, here's another email with feedback on my commit or my PR. It's like, oh crap, I need to fix this. Right? And they're starting to, like, they're already thinking about how do I extend that to security reviews? Claude Code already has a command called /security-reviews. I'll talk about it in a second. That basically replicates SAST. And if you, they've also started talking about how do you auto patch these vulnerabilities before they even become CVEs. And if you go to OpenAI's job search page, you will see a head of security products job posting, right? So they are going in this direction. They will fix this. The next iterations, like with every other feature they've worked on, the next version of the models will get better at this. Don't ask me what that does for the AppSec industry, but product industry, but that's generally how these things will get fixed at a fundamental level. But till they get fixed, it's on us to keep an eye on these things, right? And that's part of our job as a vendor in the community, is making sure they fix these things. Sorry, is there another question? All right, moving on to the second finding, which is the DOS. So here, this is as simple as there was a point where if you just wrote path, blah, 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 $, parentheses, path, and you put a trailing character before the close parentheses. Could be a trailing space, it could be an escape character. If it doesn't it's expecting the close parentheses, it doesn't find it, it'll throw an exception called bad substitution. But it doesn't, the code doesn't handle, like, it doesn't know what to do after it throws the exception. Right? So this could be, like, that function is called recursively. So if it happens somewhere down the nesting, it throws the exception, it doesn't know what to do, it goes back up, exceptions thrown, exceptions thrown, exceptions thrown, the thing crashes. Right? So there should be, when you throw an exception, you should have a catch. You should have what to do in that scenario to the program, right? You either return a value, you fail gracefully, something. It does not do that, and so it crashed the session. They quickly went and fixed. This was also another thing. This was a fight with Anthropic, and they're like, no, this is not about, it's only going to affect this one session. You can just kill your session, start a new one. Okay. They still went and fixed it. So that's that. And again, another indication of this stuff, like input validation is hard to do at scale, right? This is a very, very simple, obvious thing if you're a security vendor and this is all you're thinking about. But when you're Anthropic and you're valued at what they're valued and you're scaling this to like tens of millions of developers, you're not going to catch it. But to their credit, their security team went and fixed it. You guys want to see it work? Yeah. This is almost like I want to sell this video on eBay because this doesn't exist in. The prompt. And you see, like, added path with a little trailing space, when the trailing space, and in all caps, there's the DOS. And he tries to restart the session. I don't know what he was trying to SQL injection it. So there you go. And there are two versions. If you go to a blog post, there's a version of where you can run this remotely and you can run this locally. So this is sort of like a simple one, but simple or obvious. But again, the point is, like, where else does this exist? Like, how many times do you parameterize that, right, in your code? It's a web-based application. Like, how many times is is Claude Code going to spit that out? And how many times is that, if you're using Claude Code to build your application, how many times is that going to happen? Now it won't, thank God. Right? At least in the scenarios we know about. Any questions on this one? It's a pretty straightforward one. So the other cool thing our researcher did was he was like, why is this happening? This is like a very simple bug. Um, why is it not catching a very, why is it not catching a very simple exception? And he reverse engineered the code. He reverse engineered Claude Code and this is the code snippet that actually does this, like that actually handles this condition. Guess what reverse engineering tools, there's GHydra, there's reversing labs, there's a bunch. Guess what he used to reverse engineer this? Claude Code. So this is, caveat is this is an approximation. This may not be the exact code, obviously. But as you can see here, it's throwing the error, but there's no catch. And there's no validation when it takes this, when it does this. Right? And there are a bunch of other places in the code that's not handled properly, so it crashed here. But I should have asked him to reverse engineer Claude Code again and show the fixed version. I'll have him do that for his Black Hat presentation. But that's that. So that's that's how we caught some obvious input validation bugs for Claude Code that would DOS your session and make you very upset and won't save your work. Now it's fixed, and now you can use Claude Code more securely. So those are the two things we found. So generally, like summarizing this whole conversation, I think you notice one pattern is input validation is very, very hard to catch. It's prevalent everywhere, anywhere you're taking an input. The parsing is hard. It's not easy to do this at scale. What can we do, right? And you're going to have engineers who are going to go into YOLO mode or auto-approve everything. How do you make sure, like, okay, you're auto-approving a benign set of functions, you're not arbitrarily running a bunch of random things instead? This is security guy talking, but engineers might throw things. There's some like obvious things. You can disable auto-approve. You can manage the allow list in Claude.md. You can parameter, you can look for specific, if there's a -exec argument, that's usually a red flag. Make sure that has additional approval. You can add additional approvals in Claude.md. So the moment that comes, or you can actually look for regular expressions if there's source code in a particular command. You can regex that, and you can add additional controls there. So that's the nice thing about the way this works. And you can set the policies in free-form text, right? So that part is easy. I don't know about this, but sure, why not, right? Try to tell engineering managers to do that. With parameterization, I think that's an easy one. That's a OWASP top 10 fix, right? Canonicalize. Make sure you're restricting what the inputs need to be. Very, very simple. You can reject, or like if they're malformed tokens. I don't know. Like this is harder to do at scale because that means it means you know the world, the universe of malformed tokens. But if you know like common ones, sure, go for it. This is probably the most, because this caused Log4j, right? If you remember, like treat this as data that needs to be validated, not code that should be run implicitly, explicitly, right? That's probably the more important one there, from my perspective. But that's where our researchers could tell you otherwise. Error handling, again, if there's a try, there's a throw, have a catch, make sure it's failing safely. And then this one is something, I think this is the one that keeps us as a company up at night, is we're waiting for the call to say, oh, yeah, I thought I caught all my NPM packages. We don't have any versions, but oh gosh, I downloaded this library that imports one of those vulnerable packages. Now I have the worm. Right? Did you import the package? No, no, no. I was using Cursor. Cursor just did it because I prompted Cursor to create the script to do this, and Cursor did it. And Cursor didn't know that this library imported a library that had this. This is the thing that keeps us up. This will get better, but transitive dependency management is one of the hard things. There are two big hard problems in dependency management these days. Transitive dependency management is one. Two, knowing if upgrading a version is going to break your application is the second. Two hard computer science problems that this whole industry is trying to solve today. Any questions on this? Any other suggestions, I guess, for those of you who've kind of dabbled with this? Any other security controls? The weird security stuff with AI coded editors you've seen? So we have like narrow window, like we have blinders on, right? Like we're looking for specific things. Sorry.
I'm sorry, lost.
Oh no.
Is this just like beta versions that are coming out that non-coders are running? That it's like kids coming out of college that have never coded before are just running these tools that have not been fully tested, and they're just running with all these tools. Is that what is going on?
It's a part of that is a part of Claude Code. Like all these vendors, their user base is that. But the people building Claude Code are some of the best engineers in the world. These are OpenAI has basically poached the best AI engineers from Meta, Anthropic, from Google, and other places. Like these are world-class AI engineers. So, but the whole idea behind it is if you trace back, we'll probably all have PhDs or masters, go back and look at the transcript, look at how many computer security classes they take. Best case one. And that's not what they're goaled on. They're goaled on shipping as fast as they can. And this stuff is technical debt that they don't really care, that is not top of mind. Their top of mind is ship the feature as quickly as possible, get it in the hands of users as quickly as possible, iterate on, make sure it's working correctly. Now, what makes it worse is what you said is now you have a like a not so secure engine or like Lego kit, and then you have young kids out of college, or you have people who've never coded before now using the Lego kit to build their own things on top of like weak Lego. And then you have, sorry to jump analogies, but now you have a house of cards that could come toppling down. That's the issue. It starts with world-class engineers that don't think security is the most important thing. That's where it starts, and it becomes an afterthought. And then you have engineers. All of us are now coders. We're coding on top of this. So we need to know if they're not going to fix this or they don't have the time to fix it. We have to know where some of the gaps are. There's another, like we could do a separate talk on the no-code development tools like Lovable and Bolt, and those have their own issues. There's a couple of public breaches. There's an app called the T app. Did anyone hear about the T app breach? TEA, T. So T is, how many Gen Zers are in the room? T is gossip. And so that was an app that was built on Bolt or Lovable. Lovable is text to app, text to web app tool. You can say, make me an app that lets me share feedback on a date. That is basically the prompt that was done. That was the app that was created, had millions of users very, very quickly. The user's entire database, like the credentials, the usernames, passwords, the messaging was all stored on a public Firebase with no 2FA. Guess what happened? There you go, right? That's even worse. Like that's a more like exacerbated situation. But anyway, any other questions? So I said they're the Anthropic security team is the best security team in the world. I'll say it again. They have done some amazing things to keep abreast of this. So our job is like we are the sidecar to their amazing team. We see it as our responsibility to do so. They've released some really cool stuff, right? They have released that. So if you are writing code using Claude Code, you /security-review. We'll basically do a code review. We'll do a code scan for security vulnerabilities and give you a report. You can also have, it also has a GitHub action. So if you want to set a policy where every engineer that commits code into your checks in code will run a scan of the code and give them results. And I know a couple of analysts that benchmark this against, let's say, like OWASP dependency check or like GitHub code QL. This is more accurate. This is actually better. Like the results are better. The limitation is programming language. It's going to get even better over time. And that's just single command. Imagine the power of that. There's some vendors in the market, including us, that you can MCP it to, you can run your own version of it, but that's like they have it native, right? That's how good the security team is. And that's how good LLM is at doing code analysis. Like it's a step function improvement probably in the last 20 years in application security as a discipline. This is the biggest, like using a large language model to do code analysis for vulnerabilities is probably the biggest breakthrough. Biggest. There are a couple of other things. They've also, like I said earlier, they started doing dependency checks too. So if I try to import one of those compromised NPM packages or a vulnerable version of Log4j, it will slap my wrist. Yes, sir. Not yet. There is, so everyone has their own guidance on their blogs. There are benchmarks for efficacy, like the efficacy of the output that's coming out of the model. Security efficacy, not yet. I think that there are people working on it. It hasn't reached adoption across the major providers. But the closest thing you have to it is every time a new version of a model comes out, there's a model card. They now all have security sections where they go into detail about what security tests they ran and what the output was. So they do share that. I don't know if OWASP is working on something. Somebody should. That's a gap. But even I've seen people blogging about it. I've seen people talking about model security benchmark. So imagine, like, we have an OWASP benchmark for static analysis, right? We don't have one so that's a project waiting to happen in this community. And I'm very surprised it hasn't reached adoption. I wouldn't be surprised if these guys are already working on it. They just haven't shared it publicly. So I'll tell you when that's going to happen. When they start productizing the security stuff. And because now all of them are starting to go big on enterprise, and security is going to become a big selling feature. It's going to become a product vertical. They're all hiring engineers for their security products. Guess what? The day one of them releases their first security product, so like the enterprise version of this, is when they'll release the benchmark. Guaranteed. Excellent question. Couple of other things. I mean, the model cards are good. The threat intel is actually, it's super interesting. There's they uncovered, they used Claude, not Claude Code, the LLM, to uncover like a North Korea scam, and they go into great detail about like how they were able to do that, or how they were able to replicate that. So that's really it. How am I doing on time? Good. So that I would strongly encourage you to follow their blog posts. So there's this best practices for agentic coding. The funny part is the things I said were troubling are part of their security guidance. I promise you they will fix that. But you'll see some of the things in here. There's also guidance on how to use Claude.md to manage your allow list. This is a good place to track knowing the quality of that team. They also have a docs page that has what are some of the basic controls. So if you want to threat model this before you make it available to your teams and you're working in the space, this is also some baseline things you can do, and they'll keep this up to date as well. And so they have it based on what your interaction is. So there are kind of 3 modalities through which you can do Claude Code. You can do the terminal thing. They have an IDE plugin for if you're using VS Code. You can have, there's an extension, and there's also, you can MCP into it as well. That's them. So props to them. And so what about the others? Like very, very quickly. Cursor, the first thing I heard about Cursor was, oh, they were pulling in old insecure dependencies. I tested it, they fixed it. For an internal project I'm working on, they actually fixed it. But there's some like abusers out there. You're not going to catch everything, but they respond pretty well. So there's a VS Code extension for VS Code plugin for Cursor, and someone was able to like mine crypto on it. I don't know if that was a Microsoft thing issue or if there was a Cursor thing. If I knowing the Cursor team and knowing, I won't say anything. So there's some configs that allow you to run that without any validation of what's in task.json. Apparently that's I don't fully understand that, but that's apparently a problem. Gemini CLI, this is an interesting one. Right? You can use, like, these are all standard files, right? readme.md, your what do you call it? Your config files, your environment, where you set all your environment variables, your package.json are all standard files, and you can embed a malicious prompt into the comments. Claude.md accepts freeform text. You can put a malicious prompt into that text. So then you're dependent on how good is the prompt injection detection for Claude, right? Otherwise, there's probably like interesting ways you can red team that. I'm sure they're dealing with that, but that's an issue as well. And that's not isolated to Gemini CLI for sure. This again is a problem. Whitelists are only as good as like your ability to escape them, and then it's not like, what if there's a compromise command in there and it's not updated in time? And that's a problem. OpenAI Codex like was YOLO by default, but they fixed that, and there's apparently some issues with their Windows version. I don't use Codex, so I cannot tell you, but this is what our researchers tell me. And that's really it. Any questions? Anything? Any questions? I'll start there. Sir. We have a blog post on it. I'm happy to share it. Maybe Mariam or Edmund, I'm happy to share the blog post. It's available, and we'll continue to do so as the RCEs that I mentioned that are coming soon. Once they get published, we'll continue to publish that on our blog. Sir.
Send the slides to Mariam.
Will do. Will do. Again, the only thing I ask you is the RCs, please keep those to yourself. I cannot give you more specifics until the cool off period, but just watch out, follow, like subscribe to our blog or watch out for some announcements from us and we can talk about those more publicly. Hopefully this was useful for you. The only thing I ask in return is please take more of these owls because otherwise I have to carry them home or I have to pay FedEx to carry them home. And if you want to do something for your peers who are trying to either break into the community, please fill out the survey, scan the QR code. We're trying to get to 250 responses to make this statistically significant for everybody out there.
This is not the Trojan horse.
There's only one way to find out. Take it home. There's only one way to find out.
Did it already.
Thank you all. Thank you for the time. Thank you.
See you next month for two events that we have. One October 9th for the workshop, and then the other one October 2nd for the last meeting, monthly. And you have an hour to network. You'll be sitting for the right side. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye. Thank you.